Listen up, weed lovers. It's 420 month, and IndieCloud.co is here to elevate your celebration. Get a massive 42% off all weed, edibles, and vapes for the entire month of April in our biggest sale of the year. This is a special year to celebrate 420, as it marks 6 years since the sale of almost all cannabis products was legalized across the country. This allows IndieCloud to deliver to you dispensary-grade legal products discreetly delivered straight to your door. No medical card needed. IndieCloud has something for everyone. Whether you're a seasoned toker or just starting out, you can explore the world of weed safely with our award-winning Soda Shop Gummy Series, our 12 strains of flower, or our record-breaking selection of vapes. Celebrate 420 responsibly all April with IndieCloud. Discreet delivery, top-shelf products, all month long. Head over to indiecloud.co/spring24, that's C-O, not .com, to snag 42% off your first order.
Advertised as higher performance and improved efficiency, is 5G a safe option? Follow me down the rabbit hole to find out. Hi friends, and welcome back to the rabbit hole. I'm your host Danny, and today we are talking about 5G and the safety factor behind it. Before we get into that, let's cover up some business things. As always, Patreon is still an option. If you want extra episodes, go check it out. First link in the show notes. Also, the week after Christmas lands on a Sunday this year, I will not be putting out an episode that week. So the 28th, December 28th, there will not be an episode that week. We will return after New Year's. On the 4th, you will get an episode, but the 28th, in between Christmas and New Year's, we're just going to take some time, just spend some time with the family, kind of hang out. We have a lot of people coming in at different time frames. We have friends coming in, family coming in, all kinds of people. So we're going to just spend some time with our people. I hope you guys are spending time with your people as well, and we'll be back, of course, on the 4th, to kick off the new year with a solid conspiracy theory, because who doesn't need a little skepticism in their new year? If you need an extra episode that week, guys, Patreon. And I know I'm harping on it a lot, but it's there. It's for you guys to have extra episodes. So go check it out. Anyway, let's get into 5G. So the 5th generation of mobile network, right? So this is meant to deliver, or it's been advertised to deliver, higher multi-gigabyte per second peak data speeds. So you might see that as like GBPS, but that's what it stands for, multi-gigabyte per second. Ultra low latency, more reliability, massive network capacity, increased availability, uniform user experience. 5G ultra wideband uses like the 28 and 39 gigahertz millimeter wavelength spectrum bands. So this is what it's advertised as, right? It's going to be better than all the others. It's going to be the best. I don't know about all that. So also, I don't know if it's really safe to be around, and I'll tell you why, because that's what this episode's for. According to Verizon, 5G ultra wideband can reach up to 1,500 feet without obstructions. That's really not that far when you think about like how far away antennas typically are from us. Like if you look out the window, you don't typically, unless you're in a city, you wouldn't see an antenna. You can drive down the road and see antennas as you're going, and you switch between them as you go from place to place, right? That's how you have service through your phone. Also, that's how they triangulate your location when you kill somebody and they need to find you. Sorry, I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, so don't kill anybody. That's just a public service announcement. So this means that more cell towers basically have to be in closer proximity. They can't be that far away, otherwise you're not getting the service that you are expecting from your phone. So there's a lot of COVID and 5G theories here, right? So 5G started rolling out right when COVID started. And so a lot of people think maybe the virus isn't real and maybe it's just radiation poisoning from 5G. I'm not going to get into that here. I'm going to do a whole COVID episode. I haven't decided when. I don't know, but I'm going to do an entire episode on everything COVID. It might be a multi-part episode because there's just so many things as we're literally living through it. 5G is going to be a part of that, so you hold on to your britches for that episode. We're going to get into like 5G safety in this episode. So, is 5G safe? That's the question I keep asking. I've asked it like 3 times now. In the 1990s, the Federal Communications Commission, which I'm going to refer to as the FCC from here on out, adopted radio frequency radiation exposure limits. So RFR limits. The following is from the FCC website. Quote, exposure guidelines identify the same threshold level at which harmful biological effects may occur and the values for maximum permissible exposure, or they refer to it as MPE, recommended for electric and magnetic field strength and power density in both documents are based on this level. The threshold level is a specific absorption rate value for the whole body of 4 watts per kilogram. Guidelines for maximum permissible exposure are different for different transmitting frequencies. This is due to finding that whole body human absorption of RF energy varies with the frequency of the RF signal. The most restrictive limits on whole body exposure are in the frequency range of 30 to 300 megahertz, where the human body absorbs RF energy most efficiently when the whole body is exposed. End quote. And then I go on. I have multiple quotes in this episode just because they explain it better in their words than I could rewrite it in my own words. So here's another quote for you, also from the FCC's website. Quote, the exposure limits used by the FCC are expressed in terms of specific absorption rate, electric and magnetic field strength, and power density for transmitters operating at frequencies from 100 kilohertz to 100 gigahertz. The applicable limits depend upon the type of sources. For example, whether a cell phone or broadcast transmitting antenna. So, depending on what is giving out the signal depends on how much you are going to absorb and also like how much you should absorb, right? And they do that for different frequencies, different whatever the different thing is, because some antenna are going to blast you harder with the whatever waves versus other antennas, right? So that's why you can go outside, stand in front of your direct TV like antenna. You don't want to stand there for long periods, but also like it's okay. These things have been researched and studied by scientists. They want to make sure that we as consumers, as people that are literally using these devices every single day, that we're safe. So the chairman of the FCC announced in a press release that the commission will reaffirm the exposure limits. These limits are based upon behavioral changes in rats exposed to microwave radiation and were designed to protect us from short-term heating risks which occur due to RFR exposure. So our bodies would heat up and it could have an effect on us. Well, so that's from the FCC. The FCC, of course, is going to try to cover their own ass, right? CYA, when applicable. So they're like, look, everything's fine. We've gone over these rates. We know exactly what's going on. You guys are good. We studied this in rats, and you're basically rats. And so your exposure limit's the same as theirs. We just downsized it because they're smaller and upsized it because you're bigger. That's it. I think about this actually now I didn't think about this when I was doing my research, but how many small children play on their parents' phone pretty frequently, right? They're always asking like, oh, do you have any games on there? Or they're watching their parents play on their phone. You see your mom and dad playing on their phone, so then you want to play on their phone because something is really cool on there. Are these same exposure limits, like, is it the same for small children as it is for adults? Because they're smaller than us. Anyway, I just thought of that. I didn't write it in my research, and I didn't actually do any research on it, so maybe I'll do that and add it in later. But it's a really good question, that's for sure, because according to Scientific American, Quote, citing this large body of research, more than 240 scientists who have published peer-reviewed research on the biological and health effects of non-ionizing electromagnetic fields, EMF, signed the International EMF Scientist Appeal, which calls for stronger exposure limits. The appeal makes the following assertions. Quote, this is a quote inside a quote. Numerous recent scientific publications have shown that EMF affects living organisms at levels well below most international and national guidelines. Effects include increased cancer risk, cellular stress, increase in harmful free radicals, genetic damages, structural and functional changes of the reproductive system, learning and memory deficits, neurological disorders, and negative impacts on the general well-being in humans. Damage goes well beyond the human race, as there is growing evidence of harmful effects to both plant and animal life. Unquote. Guys, these scientists study EMF for their job, electromagnetic fields. They are scientists in that field of study. All they study is electromagnetic fields. And they're saying, hey, whoa, take a step back. This rat study that you did is not good enough because there's huge deficits that's happening to the human body and to plants and animals in our world. So, okay, let's tie this together, right? They're claiming climate change. Whether you believe in climate change or you don't, people are yelling about fossil fuels and climate change. Well, if scientists are literally saying that this is damaging plants and animals as well as humans, then you're not thinking, oh, these antennas, this RFR is causing issues. No, because that's a positive on our life. Even though fossil fuels are also a positive on our life when we want to just get rid of them, they're saying that it's not a big deal because this other agency back in the 90s, when we didn't have as much research, they said it's fine. 25 years ago, they said it's fine. We have more research now. It's okay. We're just going to reaffirm all the exposure limits we already have. Well, the FCC exposure limits take into account the frequency of the carrier waves, but ignores the signaling properties of the RFR along with the patterning. So if the signal is pulsing or the polarization of it, they don't take into account any of the things a wave could do, right? And we talked about this in the Thomas Edison episode about like AC and DC and whether it's going back and forth or going just directly out and coming, like, there's different ways waves move. And most people wouldn't know this, right? This is kind of a more in-depth thing than what a general person would know about radio waves and how it all works. Maybe you're a wave person and you know these things. On a basic level, each wave works differently. They didn't take into consideration all that. They just took into consideration that there are different waves, and so we need to look at them, but they didn't take into, like, are they pulsing? Is there some sort of polarization to it? These characteristics increase the biological health impacts of the exposure. Exposure limits need to be revised based on the biological effect, not a change in laboratory rat behavior.
Listen up, weed lovers. It's 420 month, and IndiCloud.co is here to elevate your celebration. Get a massive 42% off all weed, edibles, and vapes for the entire month of April in our biggest sale of the year. This is a special year to celebrate 420, as it marks 6 years since the sale of almost all cannabis products was legalized across the country. This allows IndiCloud to deliver to you dispensary-grade legal products discreetly delivered straight to your door. No medical card needed. IndiCloud has something for everyone. Whether you're a seasoned toker or just starting out, you can explore the world of weed safely with our award-winning Soda Shop Gummy Series, our 12 strains of flower, or our record-breaking selection of vapes. Celebrate 420 responsibly all April with IndiCloud. Discreet delivery, top-shelf products, all month long. Head over to indicloud.co/spring24, that's CO, not .com, to snag 42% off your first order. Summer is the season of hot temperatures, outdoor adventures, and refreshing water activities. Summer is also the season of rough on your feet, causing dry, cracked heels and toes. Introducing Babyfoot, the original exfoliation foot peel that contains 16 natural extracts formulated to remove dead skin cells in 3 easy steps. Apply the booties, relax for an hour, then wash your feet. In 14 days, you've got baby smooth skin and your feet have never been softer. Letting dead skin cells build up over time is hazardous to your foot health. Our professional-grade DIY products, like our original exfoliation foot peel, our men's foot peel, or our moisturizing mask, are some of the best foot care products on the market, created with your foot health in mind. Pamper yourself with a spa day from the comfort and convenience of your own home with Babyfoot. If you want a chemical-free, easy-to-use exfoliating process from the company that created the original foot peel, it's time to treat yourself to Babyfoot. Go to babyfoot.com and use the code SUMMERFEET24 and get 20% off your first order with Babyfoot. That's babyfoot.com and use the code SUMMERFEET24.
They need to actually sit down and look at how many people are having adverse effects from just having their phones in their hands all day. Because we do. Now with apps like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, games on our phones, we're constantly scrolling. People literally make money on social media apps. People are always on social media apps. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm on Instagram constantly. I'm trying to always promote this podcast for you guys, make sure you guys know a new episode dropped or whatever. I mean, people have their phones in their hands all the time, whether you're doing business, your pleasure, whatever it is. I love to talk on the phone. I call my family all the time. You're telling me that now I could get cancer? I could be at risk of sterilizing myself because I am on my phone? That's terrifying. And you don't really have an option when it comes to I can't choose between 4G and 5G. It just picks whatever antenna is closer. The WHO, World Health Organization, classified RFR as, quote, possibly carcinogenic to humans, unquote, in 2011. Last time I checked, it's 2022. So in 2011, they're like, yeah, this is probably harmful. And then a study done by the U.S. National Toxicology Program found evidence that 2 years of exposure to cell phone RFR increased cancer in male rats and damaged DNA in rats and mice in both sexes. So now the rats are having adverse effects, adverse reactions after 2 years of exposure. And how many of us have had our phones for well longer than that? I mean, I've had a phone since I was in middle school. So that's a long time. That's 15-ish years. I don't know how long. Even more, the Ramazzini Institute in Italy recreated these same results with the labs or with the rats and the cancer using weaker exposure to cell phone radiation over the life of the rats. So they didn't give them full cell phone radiation. They gave them less. And they still had the DNA changes or the damage to their DNA and the cancer. They still had all these things. Regardless of this new information, they're like, yeah, we won't listen to that. The FDA reaffirmed the FCC's 1996 exposure limits. No problem. They're like, yes, it's good. I'm sorry. I'm getting really heated about this topic because they don't seem to give a fuck. And I think that's the biggest issue when it comes to most of these conspiracy theories, is that they think that we're stupid and they don't care about human lives, typically. And I can name a handful of conspiracies off the top of my head right now that just don't care about human lives. Here's one of them. People think this 5G thing is a conspiracy. These are facts. This isn't made up. This isn't just somebody in their basement like, oh, let me type on Reddit. These are facts from Scientific American. 5G technology utilizes millimeter waves and microwaves. So millimeter waves have not been utilized before. Microwaves have been utilized with 2G, 3G, 4G, all those things. Millimeter waves require antennas to be every 100 to 200 meters, which exposes people to millimeter wave radiation more frequently because the antennas have to be closer together. Quote, 5G also employs new technologies. For example, active antennas capable of beamforming, phased arrays, massive multiple inputs and outputs, also known as massive MIMO, M-I-M-O, which expose unique challenges for measuring exposures. Millimeter waves are mostly absorbed within a few millimeters of human skin and in the surface levels of the cornea. Short-term exposure can have adverse physiological effects in the peripheral nervous system, the immune system, and the cardiovascular system. The research suggests that long-term exposure may pose health risks to the skin, for example, melanoma, the eyes, for example, ocular melanoma, and the testes, for example, sterility. Sorry, I have a hard time saying that word. Okay, so we know the harms of 2G and 3G. So they did the research. They put it out there. There's harm. You can find how harmful 2G and 3G are. We have done very little research about 4G because basically nobody wanted to fund it. They don't want to know, because if they know, then they have to report it. And if they report it, then people might not use their 4G devices. Well, here we are now with 5G and everyone's saying it's totally safe. Scientists are literally saying the opposite. You have 250 people saying, no, it's not safe. And I know that 250 people isn't a lot, but it's still enough. And compared to how many scientists do we have? How many scientists in this field do we have that are saying, hey, whoa, hold up? How many scientists are saying, go ahead, it's totally fine? In this field, in the EMF field, how many of the EMF scientists are like, this is totally okay? Because I don't hear those people. I hear these 250 people that study this field saying, whoa, we should slow the roll a little bit. Last time I checked, we don't typically get our standards from people that don't study the like we get our information from the people that literally do this for a living. These EMF scientists study this for a living. We should follow what they're saying because they have the most knowledge. But why are we ignoring them? Money. It always comes down to money. Who has more money? That cell phone companies, internet companies, these people that are going to benefit from having the 5G and the 4G, they have more money and they're getting more money for these 5G technologies. So they're going to shut down the scientists every single time. Money talks. And don't get me wrong, 5G is not replacing 4G. They will be used simultaneously because 5G only works within a certain distance. So because of the antennas. So if you aren't close enough to an antenna, then your 4G kicks in because the antennas don't have to be as close together. We haven't studied the effects of using both 5G and 4G at the same time, so we have basically no idea. Could we be at greater risk? I mean, I would think so. I don't know for sure because, again, we haven't studied it. We've barely done any research on the 4G alone, let alone the 5G alone, and so now we're going to be using them at the same time. And even if you're not actively using 5G and 4G or whatever at the same time, if you're in a city where there's a lot of 5G antennas nearby, there's still those 4G antennas. They didn't go away. They're still there. So you're telling me that you're not utilizing them at the same time? Fine. But your body's still absorbing them. And we aren't, like I said earlier, we're not just talking about cancer, which we are seeing an increase in certain types of head and neck tumors. We're not talking about that, but it's happening. We're also seeing neurological disorders, reproductive harm. Our phones could literally be sterilizing us. Our phones could be killing us. Have you seen The Handmaid's Tale? I feel like I refer to movies and TV shows a lot in this podcast, but also the reason I do that is because they're all based on something, right? If you haven't seen it, it's on Hulu. It's really, I like it, but maybe you won't. I don't know. You make your own decisions. They literally imprison the fertile women in the show. Most people are sterile in the show. So they imprison all the fertile women that are that have cheated or that are gay, whatever. If you're fertile, you get imprisoned, you become the handmaid. And every month when you're supposed to be fertile, most fertile, right? You're ovulating. The man you are assigned to rapes you, and then you're supposed to have his babies. And you get raped for as many months as it takes for you to get pregnant. But they never really talk about why everyone's sterile in the show. And I looked it up, and there's some speculation, pollution or some environmental issue. It could be anything. But they didn't really. Then they've never alluded to their phones sterilizing them. But it could be happening. It could be happening. Anyway. Billions of dollars are being spent and 800,000 new antennas are being installed. And for what? I don't know about you, but every time my phone tries to use 5G for something, literally anything, to load a web page, to just like show me my location on a map so I can decide, do I need to go north or south? Like, I don't even need directions. I just need to see where I'm at. It won't even load it. I know that I'm on 5G when I'm in the city and I'm not loading anything on my phone because it sucks. And this is my opinion. This does not have to be your opinion. My opinion is 5G is not great. It freezes up, it doesn't load, is awful. There have been many times where I have to call somebody else and be like, hey, this is where I'm at. Do I need to head north or south to get home? Because my phone won't load anything. So we should listen to the 250 scientists and medical doctors that have signed the 5G appeal. Because this appeal is literally calling for immediate moratorium on the deployment of 5G and ask the government to just like fund some research so we know if it's a safe option. So we know how much exposure. We have the minimum research done, but we for sure need a bigger research study, long-term outcomes. I mean, we need this with COVID vaccine as well. We're not getting into that here, but we need this with a lot of things. We need to know how safe this is. Is it safe for my baby to even be around my phone? Because I don't want to sterilize him when he's older. And we've never had this issue before because phones are relatively new. I mean, some kids have grown up around phones. Not all of us. And not with 5G, not with 4G. These are relatively new. So the kids that have been around this, they're too young right now to know, like, if they're going to be sterile, maybe they have cancer, we just haven't found it yet. Maybe it will develop later on. I mean, back in Vietnam, we thought Agent Orange was good until it wasn't. And all of our military members are still being treated for their Agent Orange exposure. Anyway, I just think that if there is a chance that this can be as harmful as this podcast has now proven that it could be, then I think that there should for sure be some more research into it. If I could sign this appeal, I for sure would. But that's just what it is. So enjoy 5G. You don't really have an option. I mean, I don't enjoy it, but you have it on your phones now, so utilize it if you can. If it works for you, good. I'm glad. But of course, guys, until next week, stay skeptical because there's so much to be skeptical about, and I will talk to you all soon. Hey friends, The Rabbit Hole is an independent podcast with everything you hear done by me, Danny Mercy. I appreciate all of your support. Please rate and review wherever you're listening. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's at rabbit.holepodcast. And thank you, Zakar Balaha, for our awesome intro.